All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. It's been a couple minutes. Good afternoon. My name is Annie Silloway. I'll be the moderator for the Lunch and Learn Beyond a Sunday, the role of the Black Church in planning communities. In honor of Black History Month, we'll hear from Colandra Jones, Mikhail Petion, Bishop Alan Wiggins, and Pastor Byron Stevenson about their planning work in their communities. We're excited to hear about their experience, so we'll ask that if you have any questions, please put those in the chat box, and we'll leave time at the end to answer those questions. This webinar has qualified for the Equity CM credit. The CM number is 9285633, and I'll put that number in the chat box so that you have the information. And this is a recording that will be on demand on the APA YouTube channel. With that, I'll turn it over to Colandra to begin our presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Colandra Jones, and I am with the City of Orlando. Thank you, Annie, and the APA Florida Orlando Metro section. Before we get into this awesome discussion, I just want to say Happy Black History Month to everyone. Even though this is the last day on the calendar for the celebration, it is something that is lived and celebrated every day. So today's topic is one that is near and dear to my own heart. This is where my professional life and my faith intersect and intertwine. So we present today, Beyond a Sunday, the role of the Black church in planning communities. Today, we have a dynamic panel. Myself, as I said before, I'm a planner with the City of Orlando. Also is my esteemed colleague, Mikhail Petion. She's also with the City of Orlando. And from our faith community, we have two visionary leaders. We have Archbishop Alan Wiggins, who is the senior pastor of the Hope Church here in Orlando. And we also have my pastor, Pastor Byron Stevenson, who is the senior pastor of West Orlando Christian Center in Winter Garden, Florida. So let's dive into this discussion. Since this is Black History Month, let's go back to the beginnings of the Black church. Okay, so Black churches in the United States primarily arose in the 19th century, in a time when slavery and segregation were common. These congregations, many founded by free Blacks prior to the 1800s, were a space where Black people could have independent expressions of faith and to escape the inferior treatment of predominantly white churches. So, for example, the church officials at St. George's Methodist Church in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, had a segregated gallery for Black congregants, and they would even pull Black people off their knees while praying. This caused this group of Black people to say enough is enough. So out of protest of the treatment of Black people in the church, the Free African Society was born in 1787. This was founded by Methodist preachers Absalom Jones and Richard Allen. This group would assist people in finding work and homes, provided literacy and financial education, and assisted in community projects. Richard Allen would go on in 1794 to be the founding pastor of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. So throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, the Black church grew with various denominations. A majority of the denominations are Protestant. What's on the slide before you right now are a list of some of the major historically Protestant denominations before 1800, during the 19th century and the 20th century. So we have the AME Church, AME Zion, CME Church, National Baptist Convention USA, Church of God in Christ, National Baptist Convention of America International, Inc., Progressive National Baptist Convention, and the Full Gospel Baptist Church Fellowship. During the civil rights movements in the 1950s and 60s, the Black church was the backbone of the movement. It was an influential institution during this time. They became safe havens for people to meet with friends and neighbors, host meetings. They were rally points and gatherings for marches. The church provided services, emotional, physical, moral, and spiritual support. Churches provided strength and comfort in a time of uncertainty and in the fight for freedom. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the face of the civil rights movement, was a Baptist preacher. On the eve of his death, he delivered his famous mountaintop speech in Memphis, Tennessee, at the historic Mason Temple, which is the Church of God in Christ International headquarters. Now we will pivot and we will highlight an established Black community here in Orlando. Washington Shores was established in 1946 when a group of business and community leaders collaborated and formed a corporation to purchase approximately 300 acres between Lake Man and Clear Lake for the purpose of providing affordable houses for people moving to the area. This group of leaders included James Graham and Dr. Isaiah S. Hankins, who was a predominant Black physician in Orlando. Washington Shores became a thriving community by the 1950s, and it was the home to the first Black-owned financial institution in Florida, the Washington Shores Savings Bank. Now I'll pass the presentation on to Mikael Petillon to discuss the Washington Shores Vision Plan.
So thank you very much for that, Colandra. So, so the Washington Shores neighborhood is actually located between Lake Man, as well as Clear Lake. So you can see that on the screen. So we do have South John Young Parkway running along the east. So let's see, for my non-Central Floridians, this is the area basically west of our downtown area. So it looks like in about 2009, the city of Orlando we decided to embark on a task force to create a vision for the overall Washington Shores neighborhood. So basically a task force was selected, and they were selected by the then commissioner and appointed by current mayor Buddy Dyer. So the task force included 16 members, and these were members who were active in the community, though they weren't necessarily planners or anybody with planning experience. So the task force was comprised of 3 clergymen, 4 business representatives, 3 HOA presidents, and then 6 residents. So overall, we held monthly meetings for about a year. And in those meetings, they included trainings to make sure everybody had a understanding of planning principles and really to understand the needs of the community. So in our introductory meeting, we chose to identify a few topics that were of interest to the community. So those included crime prevention, urban design, transportation, as well as historic preservation. So within the 12 months of training, the city and the task force were able to build a rapport and to make sure that everybody spoke the same language. And what I mean by that is, for example, at one point, members of the task force were saying, our neighborhood is a little over 50 years old. We should be a historic district. So with the training, everybody came to realize that with a historic district comes certain restrictions. So you would be restricted in terms of potentially the windows you can add to your structure, potentially the paint colors, the architecture. So really the community didn't want those kind of restrictions. And really what they were interested in was preserving their history. So we came to realize, okay, we could accomplish that using plaques or historic markers without necessarily needing a historic district. So then in September of 2009, we held a community planning day. And with that community planning day, we did a walkabout around the community. It was really hot. I remember that day. So we physically walked around the community, and then we discussed, what did you like? What don't you like? What do you want to see more of? What makes you feel comfortable? If we could go to the next slide. So really after that 12 years of engagement, or I'm sorry, after those 12 months of engagement, the end results equaled the city presenting the task force recommendations to the community in 2010. And then we presented it to the local planning agency in June of 2010, and it was adopted by City Council in October of 2010. So the ultimate objectives of the vision plan included the items on the screen. So that would be enhancing the existing pedestrian-oriented nature of the community, promoting revitalization, creating appropriate transitions between uses, as well as being able to implement some CEPTEB principles into any redevelopment that occurs. So the implementation arm of the vision plan was actually a special plan overlay that we added to the city code. And with that special plan, it included a transect. So you can see within the darker areas are the more intense zones. So that's our T5 areas. And that really occurs along the main corridor of Columbia Street, as well as the interior of those existing super blocks to the east. And then we really transition out as you go into the single family residences. If we could go to the next slide. So now we get into the good stuff. So we're going to talk about some of the notable projects, and we're actually going to start with a few items that are technically outside of the special plan, but in my opinion, they are the result of the momentum and a catalyst of the special plan. And I got to say the special plan stuff to lead into Bishop Wiggins, because most of them are associated with Hope Church. So you'll see. So with this first project, it's referred to as Pendana at West Lakes, and it's actually located 3 blocks east of the edge of the special plan boundary. So you can see where South John Young Parkway is, SJP. So that's technically the eastern edge of the special plan. So this project is 3 blocks to the east. So this project was approved in 2015, and it includes 2 phases. You can see them separated by that street. I believe, is that Ohio? Even with my glasses, I can't see that well. So we have 200 units for the multifamily, which is the bigger block along the east. And then the second phase was for 120 units of senior housing. So that's the smaller block to the west. If you could go to the next slide, please. So on this screen, you can see at the top is the previous multifamily development that was there. And it was built in the 1960s. And it was actually previously the largest privately financed African-American apartment complex in the area. Other things to note with these images is, so again, the top, that's actually from 2007. So you'll notice that the utility lines are actually located in the median. So with the development of Pandana, they were relocated to the south side of Orange Center Boulevard, and it does make a huge difference in regards to the aesthetics. So this image does not include the second phase. So the senior housing is actually right outside of this image to the west. And this was completed, so phase 2 was completed in 2021. So for the next project, it technically does not have a fancy name yet. I'm sure once it's completed, we'll get a fancy name. So for now, we'll refer to it as Orange Center Land Development or Land Trust Redevelopment. And this is technically, it's still outside the special plan boundary, but it's across the street from Pandana. So this was previously the site of a multifamily development, and it had 111 units. So the old structures were demolished in 2018, and then the city subsequently purchased the property and put a request out for proposals for redevelopment. So this site plan was approved in 2019, and it is for a land trust concept. So it was approved for 30 townhome units, 28 multifamily units, and 16,000 square feet of commercial. So looking at this site plan, the bulk of the site is the townhome units, and then to the west is that mixed use that includes the multifamily and commercial. Or I'm sorry, to the east. I said to the west, it's to the east. So on this screen, you can see the elevations. So at the top, that's that mixed use building that includes the multifamily on the top 2 floors and the commercial at the bottom. And then the image at the bottom is of the townhome units. This is currently under construction. And in this next image, you can see basically a 10-year span between the old Orange Center Boulevard and the new. So you can see Pendana on the left side, and on the right side, you can see the construction fence for the land trust project. So we can only imagine what it's going to look like when both are complete. So now we get into the notable projects that involve Hope Church. So on the screen, you can see the previous Hope campus in 2012. And one thing to note is Washington Shores was actually considered a food desert. So in 2014, when Walmart came to the site, it was a pretty big deal. So you can see Walmart, their parking lot, as well as a charter school that was added. If we could go to the next slide. So in 2019 and in 2020, 3 out parcels were built to the south of the Walmart. And you can see the elevations for one of the out parcels in addition to the Walmart on the screen. And the next slide. So this site is actually referred to as the Village Square, also associated with the Hope Church. This is the former Wilcox building, and it's currently referred to as the Village Square. And they wrapped up their improvements in 2012. It actually looks a little different today, but in 2012, this is what it looked like. So it pretty much got a facelift and removed much of the concrete that was along the front and replaced it with landscaping. And one thing to note is there's actually single family residences across the street. So this is a huge improvement to the area. So now I'm going to turn it over to my former bishop, the Archbishop Wiggins.
Let me just interject for a moment so I can give just a quick bio of Bishop Wiggins. He is the visionary leader of the Hope Church Orlando, senior pastor. And this ministry was founded in 1984 by his parents, Reverend Dr. R.W. Wiggins and Mother Beulah Wiggins. Bishop Wiggins became pastor of the Hope Church in 2001. So Bishop, we thank you for joining us today and this group of planners. And we know that we've worked extensively together over the years. And we just want to hear your insight about the planning process with your particular projects, with the community, and your experience with working with the city and dealing with these projects.
Well, let me just say, first of all, Colandra, thank you. Mikael, thank you so much. Those of you who are responsible for me even being on this platform, I want to say thank you. And just looking at the presentation, I'm sitting here with goosebumps, having lived through this and remembering the walks, remembering the hot sun, remembering the discussions with our community and trying to bring some unity around what we believe this area could be. I believe as it relates to our role, I think over time it became apparent to me that the church, the city, and the community needed to find common ground. You know, sometimes as ministers of the faith, you know, we are spiritually and emotionally driven, but to bring the data and the analysis and all of the things that I believe the city helped us, opened up our minds. Matter of fact, Mikael, it was at one of those design charrettes where we understood we were in a food desert. It was through the exercise of asset mapping when we realized that we could not find a full service grocery store for 2 to 3 miles from this area. I was like, oh my God. And so we began to look at how we could um, um, gain a grocery store to this area. And we knew that if a grocery store would come, it would open up development all the way across the board. I, um, I say that because all of the things you saw on the screen, the AutoZone, the 7-Eleven, the mall, all of those really were spinoffs as a result of bringing the Walmart to our area. But it really stood on the shoulders of the investment of our parishioners, the investments of my parents, and our community throughout the years. The church's role was really to bring more of a conviction, to always be a beacon of hope. I just discovered that we can have all of these beautiful, nice buildings, but if there's not the change of hearts and souls and minds, then nothing will ultimately change. So our church has always been focused on bringing that spiritual component, that component that helps to shape the moral compass, so that we could develop nice things and that they would be sustainable. But it was really around 2000 when I had an epiphany by walking across the street from our church to visit one of our parishioners that lived in an apartment complex. And I could not believe that people were living in such deplorable conditions right across the street from our church. And we were doing all of the great things, all of the great spiritual things that churches do. But I just could not believe that with having religion and with having faith, they were living in such bad conditions. And that's when I had my come to Jesus moment, when God basically said to me, what are you going to do when you leave this place? And I said I was going to go to my home. He said, well, no, I know you're going to go to your home with wall to wall carpet and ceramic tile and all of the amenities of life. But what is your church doing to change the lives of people that live right in front of its doors? And that's when it became very, very personal to me. And we ended up forming separate entities so that we could protect the church and that we could put everything in its rightful place, and ended up purchasing an apartment complex and doing it several times. And we found out that it was not about Sunday's service, it was about the service that we gave through the week as well. That's when we came up with our whole Hope Center West concept, a live, work, learn, play, and worship community. We call it a comprehensive approach to community transformation. And so, again, just think about it. It's been about 24 years. And somebody asked me earlier, was I aging? And I took it as a compliment, because I'm like doing everything I can to stay as young as I can. But nonetheless, in every area of that comprehensive approach to community transformation, we have sought to bring kingdom influence. And so that's what you are seeing on the screen. And so we thank our partners, because we could not do all of what has happened alone. We have incredible dreams even for the future. I'm not retired yet. I feel like I got a few more years left on, more tread left on the tires, if you will. And so we've got some incredible plans for the future. And hopefully this gives you enough to a platform to start your interrogation.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Bishop. Thank you. We don't consider it an interrogation, but it was definitely great information, and it allows us to see how influential community partners are, especially the churches that are in our communities, how we can galvanize together to bring people together in order to make, like you said, I love your thing, live, work, worship mantra. Our communities are supposed to be all things to all people. So that's what we try to strive for. And like you say, we don't want to go outside our community just to go grab a gallon of milk. So your effort in bringing the Walmart to what we consider that area was a food desert, we definitely appreciate that. Also, Bishop, we met on yesterday, and you have this innovative concept for young people within the Village Square building. Could you expound a little bit upon the Frontline Innovation Studios, that concept, and what you're bringing that to our community as well?
In 2014, I became the lead for Frontline Outreach Incorporated. It was a after-school recreational early learning entity that had been around for over 50 years. So when we talk about going back to the beginning of Washington Shores in 1946, and matter of fact, one of the founders of Washington Shores era, Dr. Hankins, was one of the people who launched the, they called it Warsaw Building at that time. Later on, it became the Frontline Outreach Incorporated. But as we made some great strides there, improved the building, stabilized the population there. Thank God for our city, and I believe it was a CDBG grant. We were able to improve the gymnasium, which was being used throughout this whole area. But the pandemic hit and we had to pivot. We kind of zoomed out and identified the highest and best use for that facility, which we believe is a permanent place for the charter school that is currently in about 24 modular buildings on the campus. And even though those modular buildings are temporary, you're reminded every time the elements of the Florida weather hit. And so we said, okay, this is the best place for the school. But we pivoted and said we were going to expand and focus our attention on technology because we realized there was such a technological divide in the urban community. So we launched what we call Frontline Innovation Studios. And I cannot express to you how much of a divine move that was, because the kids now, they are into coding, they're into robotics, they're into AR and VR, all of these different R's. I'm learning so much stuff. They're keeping me young. And I discovered that today's youth are born with cell phones in their hands. So if you want to be able to connect to the future, you have to be able to communicate with the future through the children. So Colandra and several of the team members from the city were over for a brief tour on yesterday, and they were able to see all of this stuff, the big LED screens, the Zoom room, and just so much stuff and so much energy. But now Frontline has really become a very key piece in launching forth the future plans for Hope Center West. And I say that because that technology piece is so important. So we got a whole lot of things planned for the future. And I'll stop right there. You can tell I'm excited. I'm getting
Yes,
young.
sir. Yes, sir. I'm excited as well. Just even the tour on yesterday, all of the state-of-the-art elements that you have, even though the building is older, I felt like I was in a brand new facility. Like I said, with all the state-of-the-art things that I have never seen before. And I want to say congratulations to you and your team on having that particular entity in the community, and to see all the young people even on yesterday so engaged into the studio rooms, and even the health piece that you have in regards to health and technology. I encourage if Bishop would allow a team of people to come over just to tour. It's just an awesome experience to see, and like you say, it gives you rejuvenation of the future to see what our community really can strive to be with the latest technology, and even, like I said, with the young people's enthusiasm about coding and all these different branches of technology that we're looking to go into the future. Thank you, Bishop Wiggins, for presenting to us today and giving your insight on planning and your development. And I know that you have great plans on the horizon, and we look forward to working with you very soon on that as well. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you
Okay,
so
thank you. The next ministry that we will highlight today, like I told you before, is very near and dear to my heart. I am a member of this church, and I serve in various capacities at West Orlando Christian Center Church of God in Christ, located in Winter Garden, Florida. Is located in the heart of East Winter Garden, and it is a thriving ministry that offers many services to the community. As you can see in the aerial photo, you can pinpoint our location by the red roof. And this was intentionally done so to let people know where we are. This ministry was founded in 1934. So this year we are celebrating 90 years of existence in East Winter Garden. And it has a long legacy within this community. So just a tidbit for the ministry name. It was founded as Church of God in Christ Winter Garden. Later on, it became known as Bay Street Church of God in Christ because it is located on Bay Street in Winter Garden. Several years ago, our current pastor, Pastor Byron Stevenson, changed the name to West Orlando Christian Center as a philosophy that this ministry is not relegated to a street, but we are called to a region and to provide services that meet the needs of the community. One of these services is provided is the King's Academy. It is a school and daycare that was founded in 2007, and it is located on the church campus. The school is named after Mrs. Frances King, who was an educator in the Winter Garden community for over 40 years, and she is the current church mother of West Orlando Christian Center. The school's current capacity is 178 students. West Orlando is very much involved in the community planning process. Back in 2017, the city of Winter Garden began the planning process for an East Winter Garden master plan. The church and the neighborhood got a taste of planning by participating in a charrette. The process is still ongoing, with the last update by the city of Winter Garden was in June 2023. And if anyone is interested in that plan, you can go to their website, planeastwintergarden.com. Now I must introduce to you the visionary leader of West Orlando Christian Center, my pastor, Pastor Byron Stevenson. He grew up in this church and became pastor in 2001. And as I previously stated, he is the founder of the King's Academy, which was founded in 2007. And both the church and the school is a thriving community, is thriving in the community. Pastor Stevenson, we thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
Awesome. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience working with the City of Winter Garden and your ministry projects and your visions for the church and the community surrounding the church?
Yes, and thankful for you all inviting me to be a part of this, and to my colleague and my friend, Bishop Wiggins. He is truly a champion of champions for all of us in the city and throughout this country. He makes all of us feel as if we're doing nothing at all, because God has graced his life with such a wonderful mind and so much favor upon him. So hats off to you, Bishop Wiggins. I have mad respect for you. And I will give a lot of credit of our success to him, and probably just a 15-minute conversation that he had with me about 10 years ago that gave me the nuts and bolts and tools that were necessary for this moment in time. About my city, the city of Winter Garden is a growing community. Our church, a bit of history about our church and where we're located. Back during the time of segregation and the time of the problems that we had in our society culturally, Winter Garden was seen as a place for immigrants or for people who would be used to pick the oranges in the fields. Up our street, when I started pastoring, we had row houses and we had rooming houses. We had a place called Britt Quarter, named after Mr. Britt. It was a place where people were provided housing. You would work in the fields and provided with a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom home with a bathroom, maybe on the outside and what have you, on dirt roads. The exchange for this was their work and their labor within our community. And because of that, our community had been set back for many years. Back in 2000, when I first started pastoring, if you look at the statistics of graduation in our community, it was known that African Americans had the lowest graduation rate at West Orange High School, which was the only high school within miles of our community. It was known that you had a better chance of going to jail than you did to graduate. Philosophy that came to me, that God really gave me, is that we might not be able to rehabilitate or catch everyone, but we should start at a grassroots, that education would be important and the key to success to remove the blight that had been blown to us as an African American people. Now, zoom ahead, we have pretty much erased the rooming houses as they were, which were not fit for anyone to live in. Our petition to the city, our efforts with the city manager at the time, Mike Bolhofer, along with the mayor and the commissioners, we all aligned ourselves together to get rid of a lot of the blight. Now, Habitat for Humanity has a large stake in our community. They are, unfortunately, we are going through a gentrification that's kind of a natural, but it's also planned gentrification, if we are honest with ourselves. Some of it is necessary gentrification that has happened. And it is being done in collaboration with this. They're being sensitive to our community as we highlight the things that the deal breakers, if you will, that are being presented to us. Our school serves to help change the mindset, to elevate the thinking. And we have been successful in our efforts. And I'm very proud of the King's Academy, our free school and our elementary school. I'm very proud of them. We've made great accomplishments. One thing I can say, we have a challenge in education. It's not a unknown thing. We provide a daycare within our school. And as you know, daycares across this nation are challenged because of the standards that are levied upon them, but the low wages, the very low wages. We pay at our school, we pay at the very top of the food chain. But yet we lose employees left and right because they cannot afford to work for us. And here's why I say this. Because the Winter Garden has become such a sought after community, housing, they call it affordable housing, right in our neighborhood, a 1-bedroom will cost you about $2,200 to $2,300. So while our community has grown and while we have become better, it's still almost impossible for people of color to get ahead because of how expensive it is and how education has become a real difficult thing to manage, especially in the daycare arena. We're doing all that we can to work with our city, to work with our community, to work with the Early Learning Coalition of Central Florida, who manages daycare, to make sure that we're able to keep our doors open to provide for our community what is very necessary and very needed. I'll be, very honest with you to say that it is very appetizing or very appealing to take a look and go further into early education, elementary and middle school. But we understand that if we are not there, and that's the main question we have to ask ourselves, what happens if we're not there? Such as what Bishop Wiggins said regarding the food desert and regarding the housing. I remember Washington Shores. I grew up in that area, in the Richmond Heights area. I grew up going to Frontline Outreach, and before it was named that, yes, the Warsaw building. I'll never forget it. We used to go there because we had, at that time, there was no Smith Center and other outlets. So our mother took us over there. And through the efforts of Bishop Wiggins, that community has totally revitalized and changed. If we take that same model and we apply it, and we're able to expand our model even greater, I believe that by the time I'm finished, just like Bishop Wiggins, and it's time to retire and pass on to the next person, our community will be ready for the future. That's where we are. That's what we're doing. I hope I answered and said what I was supposed to say for you.
Yes, sir. This is definitely a great conversation. Um, can you tell us anything that you have on the horizon? Things you want to do in your vision and goal for the church and the school later on. I know you're telling with what we're dealing with now, but is there anything that may be, I don't want to say pie in the sky, but something very grand that you want to do
Yes.
that us planners can help assist with you with?
Yes, yes. So we are working. We've met with the city, and Colandra, you are part of that conversation. We met with the city at the end of last year to move some of our modular buildings off of campus and to bring one building in that would be large enough to house, to give us more capacity. One of our great concerns is security. When we think about Uvalde and the other things that have happened across the nation, it is of great concern because we've seen an uptick of gang violence in our community. It's an alarming uptick where we've had visitors into our worship service, of the which we've had to, really literally arm ourselves to make sure that we are not the next thing on television. So with that in mind, we're doing what we can now to increase our capacity, but also increase our ability to be a secure campus and what have you. We're also looking into the future of how do we, a building that was built in 1968, how do we make it greater than what it is? And how do we, right within our community, transform the life of the people that are there? Those are some things we're looking at. Big pie in the sky would be rehabilitating, rehabbing that one area, that one strip that we're in right now, and also expanding our reach, expanding our wings to do even greater things. The city, there's a historic area which I'm a part of the development for this. We met 2 weeks ago. It's called Center Street. And it was a place where people gathered to play cards, to drink, and what have you. The city acquired that property, and we are now in the process of developing it for commerce together. How do we bring businesses in? And one thing that we are very, very clear with the city on is we want our African Americans to be empowered as entrepreneurs to bring business in and to thrive and to do well as a part of the city's master plan. Unfortunately, a reality is that while we are desegregated, we are still very much segregated. There's a sharp difference between what the amenities you get downtown versus what you get in East Winter Garden. The city is very aware of that. We have very frank, very upfront discussions about it. How do we make our area resemble, and how do we take the funds and the money? So one thing that they brought in, if I'm going off track, please let me know. One thing that that has been brought to the table that was discussed is we want to give homes a facelift. We want to invest $40,000, $50,000. We want to do this and that and the other. But it comes at a cost. It comes with attachments. And to me, if we're going to ever really help, we can't help by just giving out. I believe that we must empower people through education. Education is the way. by providing great jobs for them, making sure that they're able to take advantage of it. And if I'm making a fair wage, a decent, livable wage, I take pride in my job. I take pride in my community. And as my community grows and I grow, then we really take this thing, instead of it being a handout, it now becomes me helping myself up. Yes, let the handout be education. That's what we try to do at the King's Academy. We want to hand you a great education. We have invested in our curriculums. We have invested in the best curriculums. And we're doing all that we can to make sure that our students are sharp. Final thing I'll say, we've learned this, that it is not the questions you ask that are most important. It is the questions, it's not the questions that you are asked, it is the questions that we ask that are most important. When our students can analytically look at the world and ask why, when they can look at the world and say, how can I be a change agent for the world? Then we are truly successful. We want them to ask that question to the entire world. How do we solve poverty? How do we keep things from happening? An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure any day. I'd rather educate you than try to figure out how to get you out of trouble and get you out of prison. That's where we are. We believe strongly that education is the key. Thank you, Bishop Wiggins, for robotics. Thank you for all of the VR things. I thought I kind of had you on some of the technology. I really did. I was proud of a lot of the advances we have. I've been to your campus, and I got to visit you again to see what I need to do to kind of catch up with you again. I had you, but after hearing the great testimony, we have fallen behind in this race.
Yes, I do encourage you, Pastor Stevenson. It is definitely a great thing too. And with you being the technology guy that you are, and the advancements that you have made, even with our church, with even the fiber optics and things of that nature that has come through the community, you've been instrumental in that. But yes, I believe that technology is the way of the future. And that's kind of one of the things that I kind of want to talk about. This isn't the end, but we want to ask the question, what's next? Post-pandemic, we've seen definitely technology has reigned, because church is definitely different post-pandemic than it was
Absolutely.
pre-pandemic.
Absolutely.
If we just be honest, there are some churches that have closed because they were not set up in order to continue on during the pandemic and even after the pandemic. I can say personally with West Orlando, we had been streaming online for years, and with that capacity in place already, we were able to seamlessly transition, even though people were not in the sanctuary itself, but we were able to give our members who were at home ministry opportunities through virtual streaming and things of that nature. So technology is definitely the way of the future, and churches do need to embrace that. And I'm so glad I have two great technological minds here on this call to see the future more. And I think that's what our ministries and even us as planners have to consider, the things of old. Because even when we think about as planners, what do we do now with our downtowns that are empty because of COVID? Many people are working from home. Our office spaces are empty. What do we do next? I think one thing that we need to do is to collaborate. We see the need. Let's talk about the need. And I thank you, Pastor Stevenson, for your candidness and your truthfulness in regards to what you face in your community. We really have to look at things head on. We can't continue to hide behind the veil, but we need to look at things head on, and let's tackle it head on. And if we do that, I believe that we can grow our communities more, we can advance them, and we won't see much of a decline as long as we collaborate. Okay, I know we got like 10 minutes left and everything, and I know there's probably a series of questions. I just want to thank our panel for coming on today. And if you can just give me 10 more minutes, there may be some questions to each of you to ask. So Annie, we'll give it back to you now.
Yes, thank you. What a wonderful presentation. Enjoyed hearing all of the great information provided, especially for us planners and how we can help in our communities. So thank you. I got a couple of questions. Byron Brooks was asking Archbishop Wiggins, he appreciates your great work. What are your observations on gentrification concerns in Washington Shores?
Well, thank you so much. And I must say to Byron Stevens, man, I'm a fan of yours as well. You know, any cheering you hear coming from your east is the Hope campus over here applauding what you're doing to our west. So big kudos to you.
Yes, sir.
As it relates to gentrification, and thank you, Byron Brooks, for posing that question. We have to continue to, the Bible says, be smart as a serpent and harmless as a dove. And one of the things that I have always held to is how can we welcome change? Because change is inevitable. Gentrification is going to happen. It's a part of the growth aspect. It's just inevitable. So I've always tried to posture myself in a way to participate and to challenge others to participate in the gentrification. What I mean by that is I think we should invest where we live, number one, and we should invest where we see others investing. Just think about it, because if we were to own more in terms of the urban community or the Washington Shores community, then we would have more influence over the future. And so what I have done personally, what our church has done, many of our members and other friends and partners, we've really invested in this area. I've even spoken to people outside of our congregation to say just that to them, because it is so important that we lead the way, and we not only lead the way, but we leave a legacy for our children. Now, to leave a legacy for our children, they have to buy in to our philosophy and doctrine around preservation. And so that's why I am so excited about wrapping in things that the young people do not find, I hope don't offend anybody, boring. So as we're looking at the next phase of our housing development, we're looking at wrapping in smart, intelligent, healthy townhomes. We're looking at doing a cadre of housing offerings. We don't believe that our Washington Shores community should be the sole place of warehousing poverty. Because when you warehouse poverty, you have all of the issues that come with it that is very, very difficult to manage. So in the housing portfolio, it should be single family housing, townhome, multi-seniors. I mean, just a whole plethora of different housing that form a good mix, so you can create a sustainable community and an investable community. So it's a live, work, learn, play, and worship community. It's a place to invest. And if we do that, we can manage gentrification and be a part of the prosperity that gentrification brings by simply saying, I want to know my place. I hope I answered the good Byron Brooks's question.
You're muted, Annie.
So it looks like you're muted, Annie.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Another question from Byron Brooks is for Pastor Stevenson. Byron says, you're very inspiring. What are your recommendations on how to best engage with city government, and are CRA dollars being provided to assist?
Well, the best way we found, and I will say this from my experience of how we engage, is to find out what's really, what they say, what bleeds leads. We find out what bleeds in our community, and we hear the city, but we also, and I believe when the city understands that you hear them, they hear you, and it becomes a partnership. So we have really worked hard on the partnership part of it, that we really want to make it a better place by attending the meetings, by being a part of the solution, and being very honest with them. One thing my city will tell you is I'm very, very honest, very, very honest with them, and sometimes maybe a little too honest, but it keeps us all on the right track so that there are no false expectations, and also that the city will know that we're watching you. Our eyes are on you, and that we hold you to a standard to do what you say you're going to do, say what you're going to do to us, and also perform. And when you perform, perform in the interest of the community and not in the interest of just a master plan that was planned without us. As far as CRA dollars are concerned, yes, CRA dollars have been deployed and are being deployed. One thing our city has done a good job of is reaching within the community to find persons to help navigate those dollars, and to make sure that it's going in the right direction. So yes, we have CRA dollars are involved in what we do.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. We have a statement, just wanted to share it from Roxanne Reed. She says she loves this discussion and is so good to hear this information. It's very inspiring. So just wanted to throw that out there. A question from Virginia Whittington. She said to both the panelists, transportation is a critical component in ensuring access to employment, education, and healthcare. How critical is transportation being incorporated into future plans for housing in your respective areas?
Well, I'll go ahead. Transportation is a problem in the West Orlando area. For people to get, for example, the Lynx bus is a challenge for us. As traffic builds in the Winter Garden area, Winter Garden used to be sleeping, just like going out to Claremont used to be. You could just, jet down Highway 50 and get there. Now that's not the case. It is terrible morning, noon, night, weekends, whenever you want to name it, because the growth, as they've gotten rid of orange groves, we've gotten so much housing in the blighted community, and even in other communities. Bus transportation is an issue for us. I do know that as they're building infrastructure, there are quite a few conversations going on about how do we solve the problem. It's been a problem. It's been a problem for the 2.5 decades that I have led in this community. It's been a problem, and it's a greater problem. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to solve the problem. I don't have many answers towards that, but I will acknowledge that it's a problem. I'll give it to Mr. Wiggins. He do a better job than me.
No, I think it is a problem that we all must constantly work through. Of course, the city, the county, and of course your area as well. We are all faced with the problem, just as we're faced with the problem of not having enough housing availability. So the more housing stock, the more schools, the growth comes the challenges with transportation. So that's something that we've just got to constantly seek counsel. And I thank Virginia for asking that question, because she's from the Metro Plan area. So she might be able to give us some guidance along the way from an expertise idea.
Thank you for that. Next, we have one more question from Megan Barrow. The question is for Bishop Wiggins. What advice would you give to other leaders trying to successfully recruit a grocery store or other fundamental business to the neighborhood? What actions and attitudes are needed?
I think if I can quote Habakkuk 1 and 2, write the vision, make it plain that men may run that readeth it, is a great principle to live by, you have to have a vision for the area yourself. It's important for whoever is looking to attract businesses and national businesses that they write their vision and they cast it. They look for the story, and the story is not about the present. The story is about what's to come. Secondly, it's important to know the assets, know your community, know what are the needs of the community. So there's a demand there. Know the traffic count of your community. I know that we're right off of John Young Parkway, and I've got 50,000 cars that frequent John Young Parkway in front of our church and our property, every day. And so with that stat, I'm able to pitch to certain businesses the need for them to serve this particular community. And I also think it's important for you, as well as other stakeholders, to look at your community, take a hard look at it. When I first started and being very intentional about our vision, there were security bars up on all of the properties that we had control of or influence. And I was just riding through the community myself, and I was asking myself, if I were Walmart, would I come to this community?
Right.
And so,
Right.
so I had to now give a facelift, and I had to paint the picture. I had to do the best I could with what I had to show that this place was not as bad as the stigma, not as bad as people were portraying, not allowing fear to be the leader of my story. And as a result of that, we pitched, we had some disappointment, but then we finally pitched, and someone by the name of Walmart said, yes, we believe and we want to be there. We can see your vision and we want to be a part of it.
Okay, great. We've got one more question that came in from Marilyn Baldwin. Her question is, how can we improve access to healthcare in our communities?
So if I could actually take that one.
Okay.
So I think the answer is in seeking unconventional partners. And that really ties into the overall theme for today. So I'll say, so as a government employee, sometimes it seems wrong to not separate church and state. But really, if we want new answers, we have to seek new solutions, new partners. And we see that occurring in terms of the PPPs. So we get a lot of public-private partnerships, but we have to engage nonprofits. We have to engage the church. I think that's where the solution is.
Thank you. Well, does anybody have any more questions before we sign off? I don't see any in the chat. So if we don't have any further questions, we can end this presentation.
Thank everyone for joining us on today. And if you want to, you can reach out to us and we will be able to answer any further questions you may have. All right, thank you.
Thank you, and I will put the CM
Thank
number.
you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.